Sheila, who works with bipolar disorder, and we'll talk to Amy Quinn, licensed marriage and family counselor who specializes in bipolar, among other mental illnesses too. So as I'm bringing Sheila on here, I'll just tell you that Sheila does a lot of different kind of work. Hi, Sheila.
Hi.
She works for the Disney Store. She's an illustrator. She's the executive producer of an animated series, and she also finds clients for her father and her boyfriend's work. So I would say you work quite a bit with bipolar.
Yes, that is true. I do.
Now, is bipolar disorder, how does it affect you at work? Does it make you feel more confident, less confident, no effect?
I would say when I'm working at the Disney Store, for example, it makes me feel less confident at myself because I see all these people that have worked there for so long, for more than 2 years, when I've only worked there for 1 year, and it makes me feel less. And sometimes it makes me feel like if they're better than me and they know that they're better than me. And I know that's not true, but that's how my mind perceives it. So at times that's how I feel, but there is times where I feel really, really confident when I do get praised for the work that I do.
Well, that makes sense. And so you feel less confident because you have a mental illness in general, and you think that nobody else would understand that. Is that what you're saying?
Correct, yeah.
Okay. So let's jump into at work, whichever job, how do you behave at work when you're manic?
When I'm manic at work, I just want to do a bunch of things at once. For example, at the store, I want to move around everything. I want to clean everything because usually I'm supposed to be in one spot and clean up that one spot, but I see everything. Like, even if I see a toy on the ground, I have to run over to that other spot, clean it up. I want to move around things that cannot be moved around, so it's kind of impossible for me to do that because I'm just a cast member, not a manager. And then along with the illustration and the executive producer job, my mind is to have all these ideas at once, and I want to work on all of them. And it gets exhausting because I try to do all of them at one time, multitasking. And then with managing my boyfriend and dad's companies, finding clients and everything, I dig really, really deep trying to find clients the whole day. And I just live in my own little bubble at that point and have no one bother me. And whenever someone tries to bother me, I get a little bit snarky and say, hey, no, I'm trying to do my own thing. I'm trying to help you. Why can't you just let me help you? And basically, it's really exhausting because I do the most that I can to help out and get clients.
Right. So when you're at work, when you're at the Disney Store, being really busy and trying to move stuff that doesn't move, how do you think your coworkers view that? Because I know you think they don't, that they look down on you or they think you're not as good as you are and whatnot. So when you realize what you're doing at work, do you realize it at the time, or is it something that hits you later?
It's something that hits me later. My coworkers, I don't think they realize it. They just think I'm kind of, I would think that they think I'm kind of weird because of the way that I'm moving around. I move from this side to that side, and I just like pace around the whole store, basically. I think that they might think I'm like really weird for that, but when I do get home is when I do realize what I did, and I regret it, and I feel totally embarrassed about it, and it does not end pretty.
So this is like a vicious cycle when it comes to the mania. You worry about them not thinking highly of you, and then you do something that you think proves it, and then you go home and feel guilt about that. So that sounds really distressing. On the other side of things, when you're depressed, how does that affect you at your jobs?
It's really hard when I'm depressed at my job because it's supposed to be this magical and I'm supposed to be happy all the time, smiling. It's really hard, but I tend to try and fake a smile at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
I try and take breaks as much as I can, but I don't want to take too much breaks because it'll interfere with my job. But at times it's been like that. I have to go into the bathroom sometimes because I sometimes have panic attacks. And if I stay in the bathroom for more than 3 minutes, which is affecting my job at that point. So
Right.
how it usually goes.
So I know that anxiety is a big part of bipolar disorder. And so it sounds like, these anxious symptoms really get in your head too. So do you ever feel, well, let me ask you this. Do you think the people at work notice the different degrees of your behavior at work? Do you think that they see it, or do they just think you're weird, like you said? Can you still hear me?
Well, I
Oh.
I don't think they. Yes, I can. Sorry. I think that they. I don't think that they see it as much. I just think that they see me as weird. I do have one coworker. I did explain to her my situation because I did lash out at her a little bit at work, where I was one-upping her in a way, and it seemed kind of snarky. So I did apologize to her, and she's the only one that knows about my issue regarding that. But for now, in my
Supportive?
mindset, yeah, she was very, very supportive of it, and she's actually really, really nice and talks to me almost every day. So it's really nice.
Well, that's good. That's great. Have you ever thought about telling anybody else?
At work, not really, because I'm scared of how they might treat me. If they might treat me differently, they might treat me like I'm. Sometimes people tend to like treat them like they're different in a way, but in a bad way.
Right, right. That stigma.
Yeah.
Bella says, my bipolar has caused me to not work for almost a year now. I'm to a point that I really need to go back to work, but I'm terrified. So are you afraid to go to work some days? You've been employed for a year now at the Disney store. So do you fear the loss of your job, or do you feel afraid to go into
Sometimes,
work?
yeah, I
Sometimes.
would say that sometimes I am afraid of being going back to work, but I do love my job. Like I said before, I really, really love my job. It's a place where I can make people happy, where I can find happiness in it. I do have those downs where I I feel bad because I don't know how to act around people, but at the end of the day, it's something that I really like doing. I really like helping people. So I would say like find a that you really like doing.
It's something that you can get into. Um, are you? I really like her sharing that she wants to go back to work, but she is, terrified. And do you have any? What is it specific? If somebody else at work found out, maybe that's a good way to. What do you fear would happen if everyone at work knew you had bipolar?
If I feel like if everyone at work knew I had bipolar, I feel like for me, since I feel like people are out to get me a lot, I feel like they would find a way to make it seem that I messed up a lot. And
Mm-hmm.
because I'm a klutz at work, um, every little thing that I drop, that I mess up on, small things, I always think that I'm going to get fired. So, because of if they did find out, I would definitely in my mind I'd be like, oh, I'm gonna be fired like any day now. Anything that I do now is gonna like end up in me losing this job that I love so much.
That makes sense. Okay, so sometimes, do you think that your manic or depressive symptoms, do they show up as much at work as they do at home?
They show up more at home. I do have points where when I do mess up at work, I hold that in until my shift ends. And when I drive home, that's when it all comes out. And I'm just like crying constantly on the way home. And then just have a giant like crying spell when I get home. And that's where most of it shows up. If people try calling me, I do answer, but I get really, really irritable. And it's gotten to the point where I have lost friends over it. So it's mostly at home.
Yeah. Let's see. Oh, Bella also says pre-diagnosis, which means before pre-treatment. Mine caused me to be late a lot and get into trouble. So you're afraid of getting into trouble at work because of it, but has any trouble come from your symptoms? Has anybody reprimanded you in any way?
I have not gotten reprimanded yet, no. Because I really do tend to hold it in as much as I can, or just go into the bathroom whenever I do feel that there's something gonna happen. Yeah.
Irene says, I've been out of work on disability for 10 years now, and I pretty much came to the conclusion that I cannot work anymore because of my bipolar and other issues. It made me feel useless, and I think I'm a loser. Do you ever feel like just, you're a loser and that you get a pessimistic attitude, like, maybe things will never change?
I I did think like that a while back when I first started my job, but then I actually found people that supported me and I told them exactly what was going on. I found at least one person at my job, my friend that I told about my bipolar, and because of that I feel a lot better. I took away that loser aspect in my mind that I had, and it just makes me feel a lot better because she says that sometimes she feels the same ways, so it makes me feel like I'm not alone.
Well, that's helpful then. Paul Garrett is saying that he has derealization, and I think I know what that means, Paul. But when we bring on our therapist at the end, I'd like to come back to that so she can speak to that a little bit. Bella lost a job. Mr. Caskell, that she thought, I was terrified of telling my supervisor that I had bipolar disorder and that I need to go to mental health appointments for it. But fortunately, she was supportive. It was that thought that she was going to treat me different, as being looked on as weird or incompetent, or just let me go from employment. So he was fortunate, like in being able to tell somebody at work and getting the support they needed.
Mm-hmm.
You have a dream job. Can you tell us what that is?
I am hopefully I have a dream of becoming the CEO of Disney.
Mm-hmm.
I have always loved Disney since I was a little girl, and I feel like since I am managing two jobs right now, for my boyfriend and father, I feel like I can. I don't know. In my mindset, I'm like I can manage a whole company. Like
Right.
it's
Well,
one in
and
the
you
grill.
got the talent behind it. I've looked at your Instagram accounts, and you have talent behind you, and there's nothing saying that dream won't happen. So you have the problems with bipolar now. So looking forward, what do you think you can do to manage your symptoms so it will enable you to reach that dream?
I feel like talk therapy helps me a lot. Along with that, I do practice a lot of different skills that my therapist has taught me, along with
Mm-hmm.
meditation. I do a lot of PMR, and that helps a lot when I feel manic.
Mm-hmm.
Um, it might be different the PMR really, really helps whenever I am at work. It's been helping recently whenever I get stressed out or whenever I do feel like I'm going to just spill out a bunch of ideas. I do feel a lot that friends and support go a long way. You may lose some along the way. Like I've lost a few, but the ones that stay, they will always help me and they're always going to be there for me. And that's my support system. That's my like wall. I know that I get there because of them.
Well, I wish you all the best, and I look forward to seeing you in the future as CEO of Disney. And thank you so much for being here today and sharing your experience, Sheila. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much for having me.
All right, so Paul, we will get to you in just a minute. Natalie, we can get to you in just a minute too. So now I'm going to bring on Amy Quinn. She's a licensed family and marriage counselor, and she does specialize in bipolar disorder, but she knows a lot about the other mental illnesses too. So let me bring her up. And hi, how are you doing?
Hi, how are you? I'm good. How are you doing?
I'm fine, thank you.
Good.
Before we get to some of the comments, there's one right here. PMR. What is PMR? She just mentioned that. I think it's muscle relaxation.
Yeah, progressive muscle relaxation.
Okay, so that answers that question. With Sheila's story, what did you find? What stuck out to you?
Well, first of all, I just really appreciate Sheila coming on here and being open about what she struggles with. And what really stuck out to me, first of all, is just a lot of the positives that she shared that I was just really impressed with some of the things that she's learned to do at work, and the fact that she's had this job for a year now. I mean, that says something about how well she's doing her job and her ability to do her job. So that was one thing. And then she has techniques for herself that she uses at work that are very good for what she's going through. I mean, even, just going to the bathroom for 5 minutes when she's feeling overwhelmed, just to have that kind of mental break and that emotional break. That is a really good skill and a really good technique. And then also the fact that she, on her drive home, when she drives home or when she gets home, how she really does a lot of self-reflection on her day and is able to say, this went well or this didn't go well, and to really think through it, and to even get to the point where she says, well, I think people might think that I'm weird, but maybe I just think that. So she's able to just kind of reflect on that with herself and say, yeah, maybe I did some things that were weird, but I also have a couple friends there who support me and tell me that I'm, doing a good job. So that first of all, that's what stuck out to me the most, just how well she's doing and how she's incorporated things throughout her day to just help her get through. Yeah, for sure.
We had a question about derealization or depersonalization, he says, and derealization. Is there a lot of people with bipolar disorder have to deal with that, and what are those things?
So depersonalization, meaning like kind of separating yourself from kind of pulling away from things or people to kind of maybe self-protect. And yeah, I mean, I think that people that have, disorders, brain disorders, I don't like to call them mental illnesses. And I've heard other experts say this, you just really have kind of brain health issues. So, really just being aware that sometimes, and I think sometimes if you have bipolar disorder or depression or anxiety, you have I think you have very heightened senses. So you're very aware of what's going on around you emotionally. And so sometimes you just have to maybe turn that off a little bit just so you can get through the day, just learn how to kind of not maybe be so in tune with what other people are doing, or how other people are maybe reacting to things.
So do you think that like the depersonalization is overkill for that kind of self-protection? Does it take it too far when you're trying to cope with bipolar?
Well, I think, and I'm currently working on my PhD, and my dissertation is actually about burnout for mental health professionals. And one of the things that the research has found is that when you depersonalization, as far as being a mental health professional, can cause you to sort of separate from your clients. So that might not be a good thing, because you want to be able to be in touch with your clients and be able to feel what they're feeling. So in some jobs, in some professions, you don't want to do that. But perhaps maybe in jobs where it doesn't really matter so much if you're connecting emotionally with people, you might be able to learn how to do that in sort of like a moderate way, so that you can kind of, if maybe you're having one of those days where you're a little bit higher, you're a little bit more manic, and you don't want to snap at people, or you don't want that to be something that you're going to regret, maybe you can learn some of those techniques to say, okay, how can I just today, because I'm feeling maybe a little bit more manic, or my senses are a little bit heightened, what can I do to sort of help myself detach a little bit from the situation so I can get through the day?
Well, I like how you describe that in talking to yourself, instead of worried, that, oh, I'm doing this again, oh, I'm doing that again. The idea, okay, I feel a little over the top today, so this is what I can do to bring that down. I think that's really interesting.
Yeah, I would say, just to go off of that, in my experience with counseling people that do have bipolar disorder, is that when you have bipolar disorder, one of the things that you really that becomes a really good skill is just checking in your moods every day. And like even Jane Pauley, who has been diagnosed with this disorder, says that she checks her moods as often as she checks her emails. So it's like, okay, that even every hour, okay, how am I feeling right now? Am I feeling a little depressed? Okay, I'm feeling depressed. Why am I feeling this way? Maybe that means that I can't talk to a certain person because they have the kind of energy that makes me feel even more down. So maybe I won't talk to that person right now, but maybe in a couple hours I'll feel that a little bit better, maybe in a couple days. So just like being really in tune with yourself. And it sounds like Sheila's really in tune with herself. And I think people that have bipolar disorder are just, it's almost like a skill that they have. They are in tune with emotions, and they're in tune with learning to be in tune with your emotions and other people's emotions. So you can like figure out the best times to talk to certain people or to interact with certain people.
Can you speak a little bit to everybody's feeling, in general, they're saying, let me just look at it again, because it just went out of my head. But, they're saying things like, it affects their relationships at work, and they're fired, and let's see. Oh, they're talking to each other too, which is kind of cool. But I really forgot where I was looking at those comments. I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, it gets distracting. But just to speak to the relationship piece, I think, and I'm losing my train of thought too, but we were talking about relationships and relationships at work. And, I'm so impressed with Sheila. I just keep going back to what she does, because I think she's doing a really good job, is that she has like her person who she confided in, who she trusts, and that person turned out to be a good person. And maybe there's someone who you kind of can get a sense of what they're like, and you just might think, I might not confide in that person because maybe they're not someone that would be understanding, and so I think we all have to do this, whether or not we're dealing with bipolar disorder or not, where we have relationships with people at work that are better than others, and there's certain people that you connect with more and certain people that you connect with less, and that's okay. You don't have to be best friends with everybody at work. You just have to get along with them enough to continue to do your job. And if you have a supervisor that is a good supervisor, and you can, tell them what's going on with you, legally under the American with Disabilities Act, they have to make some sort of an accommodation for you if you do have bipolar disorder and you do have to go see your therapist. Like that's an accommodation, like legally, that they should make for you. So you're protected under the law when it comes to things like that.
And that's good to know too. A lot of people don't. Your mental health can be protected also.
Yes, for sure.
I think I'm going to read Natalie's comment, and I guess I'm just going to ask you, is this familiar to you in your practice? And she says, I can't bring myself to come down when my emotions are high. I don't know how to bring myself back down. When I get upset, I mentally attack myself, and it gets worse, and I blow up at everyone who tries talking to me to help me. I always feel like people around me are out to harm me in some way, and I can barely express to my girlfriend how things make me feel.
Mm-hmm.
Is that pretty
Yeah,
common?
I do. I think it is. It's common. One of the symptoms of bipolar disorder is a paranoia, right? So it makes sense that you might feel that way. And there might be truth to it too. It's not just all you being paranoid. There's definitely probably some truth to it, but it is one of the symptoms. So it's kind of like, okay, like how do I manage that symptom? What's a way for me to say, okay, I'm feeling paranoid about this. What can I do to help myself feel less paranoid? Maybe it's journaling, maybe it's one of the things that I've done with my bipolar the clients is to go through like a thought record where you identify the thought that's paranoid, and then you kind of go through what are the things in my life that support this thought, and then what are the things in my life that don't support this thought. So for example, you might say, well, my thought is I could never have a job again because I'm just not, qualified to have a job. Well, then you go through all the things that maybe, maybe this something that supports it. Well, I haven't worked in a year. Okay. That might support that it might be harder for you to have a job. But then on the flip side, you probably have lots of different skill sets. Like I'm good. I'm creative. I'm, thoughtful. Like I come up with amazing ideas. There's things that you have that are your strengths that really don't support that thought. So really going through that exercise in your mind of what supports this thought and what doesn't support this thought.
I like that idea. I'm going to have to do that for myself too.
Oh, I do it for myself too. I absolutely do it for myself. So.
And Sheila, I'm sorry for Aguela. I probably messed that up really bad. But she says journaling helps a lot with her, and she probably has different journals.
Yeah. And I would say to add on to the journaling piece, like give yourself the positive too. Don't just think about the negative. Like every night, this helps me too. Because I can be negative. I struggle with depression and anxiety. So I have those kind of automatic negative thoughts. Is I go through every night 5 things that went well for me that day. Like, what did I do good at work today? And I can always think of 5 things and even more than 5 things. And that helps combat, like, research says that you need 5 positives to every 1 negative to sort of override that negativity bias that we just naturally have in our brains. So.
Oh. Well, that's really interesting. I had no idea about that.
No, it's true. Yeah, I've done some research on that. And because our ancestors had to like hunt for their food and survive, like where our brains are just hardwired to remember the negative. So we're always going to remember the negative over the positive. So we have to like actively work to put more positive in our brains than negative to just override that.
Well, to kind of wrap up, is there... do you have any advice for somebody who has bipolar at work, but they think they're maybe going to lose that job? Is there something that they can do? Like maybe one of the tips you've already mentioned, but can they do something to help overcome that fear so they can get back to work and doing what they're best at?
Yeah, I think Sheila's doing it at work. Every day she's reflecting on her work. And I think if if you try to start doing that from the beginning, you know, and try to incorporate those little small steps every day, I think it will help in the long run rather than waiting until you're at the point where you feel like, uh-oh, you know, I've sort of, you know, just to try to incorporate those things every day. I think it will really help that. And then, you know, if you need to talk to human resources and express to them, you know, what you're dealing with and that you might need an accommodation for that. Maybe you need some mental health days, you know, so that you need to take some, you know, most companies that I've worked for, they have, you know, health days or mental health days or, you know, sick days. And you need to take some of those days to get yourself back to where you can work. You do that, you know.
Well, I really appreciate all your thoughts today and for being here. And I hope we can have you back on again. And
Yeah, that was great. I loved it. Yeah, I enjoyed talking to you and hearing everybody's stories and feedback. And please feel free to reach out to me if you have any more questions.
Okay. All right. As we go down through the comments later on after the show and everything, I'll send some to you if, you know, if they apply. So I appreciate
Okay, perfect. Okay.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye. Okay, so that's all for today. I want to express appreciation for all of you who added your comments, and I hope I didn't miss them. But if I did, we'll try to go back through them here after the show and try to respond to those. And I really appreciate you all being here. Go to HealthyPlace.com for more information on bipolar disorder. And we also have a blog there called Work in Bipolar. Or Work in Bipolar or Depression is the name of it. So you can check that out and understand other people's experiences and get some more ideas on maybe how you might manage your own. So again, thank you all for being here today. And